Today, everybody, we are going to explore an exceptional journey from trauma, suffering, being, let's say, defeated to triumph and leading others. Nathaniel, could you please introduce yourself and what you do for business?
Yes, my name is Nathaniel Brown. I am a life strategist and a life coach, motivational speaker, writer, and what some would consider a thought leader. I am just in the business and the mission of helping people be the best of who they are by bypassing limiting belief systems.
So you mentioned like you focus on like most of what you are doing on the mind and on the thinking. How much does that play in your business?
A lot. I have found that the mindset is the motivating factor. It's the cusp of where everything, or the hub of the wheel where everything spins from. So as the mind goes, so goes everything else. The brain is just an activity of the mind. It's the mind in action. So what's happening is that people are getting these downloads, or these attunements. They're attaching and attracting themselves to thought waves, and they're on a channel, and they're literally acting out what they are thinking, if you will, or they're acting out what they're being downloaded to. And a lot of it is just belief systems based in fear, limbic hijackings, or what they call amygdala hijackings, where these fear-based responses get handed down through generations and generations, and it's repetitive patterns, and they become unconscious, skillful movements through life, but they're fear-based. So people keep experiencing the same lacks and not knowing why.
You think that you are lucky that you decided to focus on this line of, let's say, business and this line of understanding?
I would say less luck, more purpose. It's the mission. I have been able to unpack a lot of my own personal traumas, my own personal subconscious beliefs. And the more I unpack them, the more I understand why I had to traverse through them. It was a process of, oh, okay, this is why this is here. So then it gave different meaning to everything. It's not even, Marcus Aurelius says, he says, it's not the thing that we're experiencing, that the external thing that makes us upset, or that gives us these responses. It's our meaning that we add to the external environment that gives us either the anger. That's what we're upset about, all these things. So once I unpacked all of that, it's like, wait a minute, I'm living life based on a meaning that's probably not necessarily true, but it's true enough for me that it's become my own personal belief system that I'm willing to unravel for the sake of the truth.
So you want to say that the meaning we see in things is our perception, not the reality?
It is not the reality. As a matter of fact, I have a glass here, right? It's got some water in it, mason jar right here. We'll call this glass half full or glass half empty. That's what we're taught to see. We're taught to see the world based on the variables, but what we're not taught to see is the glass. The truth is not the variable. The variable is the glass is either half full or half empty. I'm either pessimistic or I'm optimistic, right? That's all we've taught. But what if someone says, well, that's not the truth. The truth is the glass. And if I can see the glass for what it is, I see infinite potential. I pour the water out, I put dirt in it and put a seed in it. Now I have a potted plant. I take the glass and I put fruit in it. Now I have a fruit bowl. I take the glass and put marbles in it and put a flower in it, and I have a centerpiece for a table. I take the glass and turn it on its side, and I take a photo of it. I have photographed art. I draw charcoal drawings of the glass, and now I have artistic work. It's infinitely potential. I turn it on its lip, and I put a pencil against the edge. Now I have a protractor to draw a perfect circle. See, now I've just uncovered the full potential of what the glass can be once I bypass the handed down variable stories.
Okay, let's get back to your difficult time. Like, how was your thinking during your traumatic experience?
Oh my gosh, it was terrible. It was me against the world. It was, everybody was the problem. Everybody was the enemy. No one understood me, all these things. And some of that may very well be true. There probably was some misunderstandings. However, they weren't misunderstandings alone. They were misunderstandings based on what I was projecting into the world. So like my thought was, well, because something was taken from me, therefore I won't give anything to the world at all. And I had a stingy mindset, basically saying, I won't give anything else ever at all. No one will ever get close to me. I stonewall myself off, heart-wise, feeling-wise. All of my thoughts, kept everything secret. And then what that did was it solidified the belief system that it was me against the world. So I didn't realize that I was actually creating the world that I was trying to run away from. I was crafting it, hammer and nail, brick and mortar, crafting the world that I didn't necessarily want to be a part of. And not until things started to unravel in my life did I have to ask the question, hey, what if things aren't the way I think they are?
And when did you exactly need to ask that question? Like when was the time when you decided that you needed help?
It was 10 years ago when things started to unravel for me. It was about 10 years ago. I was sitting on my couch and I heard this voice in the back of my head or inside my being. And the voice says, what if everything you believe is complete bullshit?
Wow.
It was I didn't say it. The words didn't come out of my mouth. These words came from inside of me. It was like another voice that was on a higher frequency that was saying, hey, tap on the shoulder. You might not be living as truthfully as you think you are. So when that question hit me, I was like, whoa, what if everything I believe is complete BS? Now I have to investigate. And the more I investigated, the more the truth came out. Everything I believe is complete BS. It's not real. It's just an illusion. It's what I limbically projected onto my reality for me to feel safe. It was just me trying to feel safe. It wasn't inviting. It wasn't, it wasn't together. It wasn't community. It wasn't communicative at all. And it was a course of time, passed by. About 2016, everything fell apart. Like I was having issues in my marriage, having issues with anger. All these things started coming up again. And I had to get help. I went to a therapist, sought anger management, and the anger management talk is what brought out the source of where all of the upset was coming from. And that's where the childhood trauma was resurfaced for me to have to deal with it again.
Like, how do these traumas like affect our thinking? Like, do we get false thinking? Do they lie to us?
Yeah, well, they lie to us in that they misalign us with the truth. A lie is just in a misalignment with what really is. It's not even that it's wrong. It's just that it's unnecessarily true for you. That's the best way I can put it. So when something happens to us traumatically, basically trauma is all the trauma is our meaning that we give to an event based on how we feel. It's an emotional extrapolation of an event. So at 8 years old, when I experienced the sexual trauma, that because I was at an age where I was completely intellectually and emotionally underdeveloped, I didn't know how to put the pieces together. It just was because I was still in that subconscious realm. You're not about 7 or 8 is when you start coming into logic, but you're still in that programming stage. But I was in that stage where, is this what this means? And I stayed there for 30 years. Here I am, 30 some odd years old back in 2016, and I'm still emoting like an 8-year-old traumatized child because I hadn't developed the emotional intelligence to be able to tell the difference. So what happened? Go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Yeah. So what happens is when we are led into an experience like therapy and or even hypnosis or anything like that, like psychotherapy, anything that takes place where the mind is being sort of manipulated to move past the limiting belief systems, we're having to uncover thoughts about an event that aren't necessarily true. Matter of fact, scientists have proven that 50% of the story we tell ourselves about the past is false. It's your meaning that you've added to it to make it what it is. It's not even the truth. So that right there was enough for me to start unraveling things. I started telling myself stories about my family and things of that nature. And I was like, wait a minute, none of this is true. This is what I told myself. And it became a belief system. And I now have to no longer believe this.
Let's go quite deeper into your mind. Like, how is your thinking now different from that time?
I know what thinking is now. Before, see, we think we know what thinking is because, we think it's the action of concentrating on one thing. No, thinking is taking pictures out of what they call the field, the mind. Earl Nightingale says the field is the mind. It doesn't care what you plant, but it'll give you back what you plant. So what I found out is I had this moment of sort of enlightenment. I was doing some meditations early in the morning, and I distinctly remember having 3 thoughts. it was the first time I ever knew what thinking was. And this happened a couple years ago. And as I had the thought, a black screen appeared, and the thought that I pulled out of the field broadcasted itself on a flat screen, and then it posted itself up on the backdrop of this black screen. I was like, oh. And then I started looking at the lifeline of what that thought could create if I stayed in that vein of thought. And then I had another thought. I extracted another frequency, and that actually appeared on the screen in front of me on this black way on a flat screen. And I started looking at the lifeline of that thought. And then I had a third thought, 3 distinct thoughts. That was the first time I knew what thinking was. Thinking is the act of alignment with a frequency. That's all it is. It's you as a channeler of frequencies, of energy. It's exactly what your television does. That's what thinking is. When you have the remote in your hand, what are you doing? You're changing the what? The channel. We use that word in esoteric theology when we're talking about people who are speaking on behalf of spiritual beings, but they're channeling. They are attuned to a frequency where a being of another source can speak through them. That's exactly what your television does. It attunes to a frequency, and that information comes through, and you get to experience it. That's what thinking is. It's you being attuned, aligned, and in agreement with a frequency that creates a lifeline experience.
So my other question here about thoughts, like, with these traumatic thoughts, is it better to keep them like away, or like to get them to surface once more?
It's better to allow them to surface, because when they surface, you can actually deal with them. See, things that are buried in the deep, that are suppressed in the deep, they force their way up. They have to come up because they have to be dealt with. But things that are embraced when they surfaced, that's when they dissolve. The need to address them any further is no longer. We go from victim. This with trauma. Trauma moves us through these three stages. We go from victim to overcomer to master. The victim always has the stuff at the surface because they need to identify with the trauma, because that's their only identity. Something happened to me, therefore the world is all of this. The meaning of the world is this because of this. All right. Then you have the overcomer. The overcomer says, well, I'm not going to deal with it like this. I'm going to push it down and get control over it. Right. And what that does is that creates this resistance. You have these resisting forces. The traumatic experience is trying to be solved and resolved. And then there's the overcomer is trying to press against it. So you're always fighting with the thought. But the master sees the trauma for what it is, as simply an event to extrapolate a lesson from, allows it to surface, surrenders to the experience, and says, this is what this was for. Thank you. A master is grateful for the trauma because it taught him or her a lesson. And when the lesson is learned, the trauma is no longer needed to be experienced. So the trauma doesn't come up as trauma anymore. It comes up as, I remember that event. I no longer have an emotional attachment to it. Now it's wisdom. Now you can use it as a tool to transform other people's lives as it was the tool that transformed yours.
My question here is how to maintain a positive mindset.
So it's funny you're talking about this, because I'm working on a talk about the power of unlimited thinking. And in the power of unlimited thinking, it's not about maintaining a positive mindset or recognizing a negative mindset. What it is about being. If you concentrate, again, positive and negative are still variables. Being is the essence. It's the difference between the glass being half full or half empty, or just seeing the beauty of the glass. The beauty of the being is that it is able to see positive and negative as one thing. It's just one. It's to put it like this: we have one planet we live on, and it has 2 poles. One is on the south and one is on the north. Neither one is bad or good. They're just poles. But you can't have polarization without oneness. So the master in it all sees oneness. The person who's overcoming sees positive and negative. What the master does is, I'm not even going to see positive and negative. I'm going to see it all as unlimited potential. So when you see thinking as unlimited, you have unlimited potential and tapping into whatever you desire. You can truly be, do, and have whatever you desire when you align yourself properly, understanding where you are and knowing where you want to go. When you attune yourself properly, we are genetically attuned to healing frequencies. We have this little device in our ear called the cochlea, and it's built on the Fibonacci sequence. It's built on the sequence of creation. It's built on sacred geometry, tuned to see at 128 hertz, which is 432 hertz in the concert A frequency. So we're actually tuned to receive healing. We're already polarized for that. And then we have agreements. What are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? You have the space to say yes and no. Just understand that you're going to be required to have the full experience. And then what are you surrendering to? Are you truly surrendering? Or are you trying to hold on because you need this traumatic experience to be something for you to feel meaning or find meaning in your own lives? So that's sort of like how I approach this unlimited thinking. It's not even about positive and negative for me. It's like, is that an experience that I truly want to have? Or is that a thought that I want to have an experience with? And if the answer is no, then I put myself in a different level of agreement with the thought. If it's yes, then I surrender to the experience even as well.
Then you decided to turn your experience into a professional program. Mm-hmm. Like, how did you build the program? What principles did you depend on?
I depended on it was my scientific mind coming through. I love Einstein's The Theory of Relativity because it gave science and quantum physicists the basis of understanding the quantum theory. That's where it kind of started, the theory of relativity. That kind of set the course. So like me understanding, like, wait a minute, there's a base formula that we can build from. And as I was thinking about the formula in this little meditation of mine, I was upstairs here in my office, sort of sitting one morning because I was asked to do a course on what it meant to create, what it means to the law of attraction, all that stuff. So I decided to unpack it. I didn't like all the other verbiage about it. I wanted to have my own way of communicating it. And immediately I wrote down C equals IA to the fourth power. I wrote it down just like that. Creation equals intention times action to the fourth degree. And those action steps are the ones I just listed. Align, attune, agree, allow. And allow means to surrender. So alignment is basically, how do you identify where you are, identifying where you want to go, and positioning yourself as the observer so you pull back from the event. And now the observer is being able to collapse these belief systems into reality. Attunement. Attunement is basically what channel you're looking at. All right. What are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you allowing into your eyes, into the light forces, the light windows of your being? What are you allowing to get into your soul? The eye is the window of the soul. What are you allowing in? Your ear takes all these frequencies and turns them into acoustic electrical components. And then you start to hear, what are you allowing into that space? Is it healing? Is it things that are giving you dis-ease or giving you peace and ease and tranquility? And then again, agreement. What are you saying yes to? Are you in coherence? Is your brain and heart vibrating on the same frequency? Is your heart leading you and not your brain, right? So like, are you actively listening to your body in that way? What do you know about the field? Are you planting things in the field that you want to receive back? Are you truly doing it with intention? And then the three that agree, the thought, feeling, and emotion. When you want something to happen in your life, are you aligning your thoughts with your feelings, with your emotions, and are you surrounding yourself with the wish fulfilled, as Neville Goddard would say? And then allowance. It's just simply the power of surrender. And you are surrendering not to the event, so to say, but you're surrendering as the manifestation of the event. It's happening in, as, and of you. So the Hindus would say namaste. Namaste literally means the God that is in, as, and of me bows in respect to the God that is in, as, and of you. So you are the creator of your world, and we respect each other in that regard as true co-creators of the universe.
You also have a program for leadership.
Yep.
How do you build it?
It was built on my own idiosyncrasies. It was built on my own failings as a leader, the traumas that I had allowed to control my narrative of life, controlled how I spoke, controlled how I led. It just ripped everything to shreds, and I had to come up with an idea or just really get back into myself. What is leadership to me? What does it really, really, truly mean? And that's where I came up with the leadership, the SID principle: serve, inspire, include, and develop. By service, how do you show up for your team? Are you really serving them? Are you empathetic? Are you listening? All of these things are important. Are you inspirational? Are you breathing life back into your team? Are you breathing life back into your family? Are you breathing life back into your circle of influence? Inclusion. We talk about inclusion all the time now that the narrative has been so racial in this country, especially here in the States, but it's beyond race. It's about what you're willing to eat off of someone else's plate. Diversity brings everybody to the table with the food. But inclusion says, hey, you got to eat off my plate if we're going to be at the same table. And that's where you submit yourself as a leader to being led into a new experience. That's inclusion because it breeds innovation. That's what innovation is. Steve Jobs says it very good. He says, look, it doesn't make any sense for me to hire someone to do a job and then sit there and tell them how to do it. What he does is he hires them into a position and allows them to lead him in the position they're in. That's leadership. That's true leadership. And then development. What are you doing to bring out the best in you so that you can bring out the best in your team? That's simple.
Let me ask you a question for yourself. Like here, sometimes these, let's say, difficult thoughts from the past may control your mind and your thinking. Mm-hmm. And then, like, how would you break out of them, or like, do you surrender back into this suffering?
Mm-hmm. No, what I do is when I have a thought from the past, I recognize it. I actually pay attention to what I'm feeling in my body as the thought comes. So remember, you can't have a thought that you're not aligned to. So if you're having the thought, it means you're aligned. So the question then is, okay, what am I aligned to that's allowing that thought for me to see it? What am I aligned to that's allowing that thought into the gate? What have I allowed into the yard at this point? So what am I surrendering? It goes back to the creation principle. What am I aligned to? What am I attuned to? What have I agreed to? And what am I allowing? Those are the creation principles. Now, when you have a thought, like sometimes I have a thought about the past, and it'll be something that happened like 20 years ago. And I'll think like, where did that thought come from? And then I'll sit with it and I'm thinking, okay, maybe it was I had the thought before and I didn't give it proper space to dissolve. And this is the space that's being given to fully dissolve again. And that's what it's looking for you to master it. That's what the thought is about. It's coming back up, especially it's happening again. The reason why it's happening again is because you didn't master it before. You gave into the experience by going into this emotional state and then hijacking the amygdala, going into a fear-based response, and you're back into the moment, and your body doesn't know the difference between past, present, and future. It only knows you're having a thought, and we need to release chemicals and emotional expressions so that we can know what this is. We need to create a meaning. But when you're in a mastery stage and you have a thought that's not necessarily anything that you would want to experience, again, you just look at it, you watch it. You literally watch the thought and see what it plays out, and check your heart, check your emotions. Are you feeling into it? The more you feel into it, the bigger it gets. It becomes an internal experience now. If you don't want to experience it, then check your emotions. Where are you feeling it? If you're having an emotional response, where's that response? Is it here in your temples? Is it across your brow? Is it in your throat? What chakra point is it affecting? Is it affecting here? Then it's affecting how you intuit. That's your single eye. That's your third eye. It's affecting how you see. If it's affecting here, then it's affecting how you speak. If it's affecting here, the heart is affecting how you feel. If it's at the solar plexus, it's affecting your emotions. If it's down here in the root system, in the lower chakras, then now it's a primal thing, and it's actually fear-based. Feel where it makes you feel, and then you'll know what the origin of the thought is. It means that you're originating this thought from these places, and it's affecting these energy modalities, these energy points in the body. And that at that point, then you can release it. You can simply have a mantra, make one up. I no longer have a need for this experience. I appreciate being shown this. I no longer have a need for this experience. And just watch the thought dissipate, because it doesn't have a channel to come through. You can't watch a television channel that you haven't tuned to.
Right.
You can't watch HGTV if you're on Food Network. It requires action on your part to change the channel.
Okay, my question here is like, how long would such, let me say, a negative feeling continue?
Okay. Feelings, actually, it's scientifically proven 90 seconds is the chemical release in the body. 90 seconds. Anything beyond 90 seconds, you're faking it. And by faking it, I mean you're recreating the event. You're cognitively recreating the event, because the amygdala, it sends the signal, the central nervous system says, oh, we got a fear-based response. We got to keep this person safe. All of these chemicals start releasing in the body, because that's all it is, love and fear. It's all two emotions, but they're just chemical releases in the body. And they only send through the body for 90 seconds. That's it. After 90 seconds, it's you that's creating the feeling in the body. You're doing it through the prefrontal cortex. You're actually you're having the emotional roundabout, the merry-go-round. You're keeping it alive. Look at an animal in the wild. When a gazelle is being chased by a lion or a cheetah or a jaguar, what happens? It can be eating grass. It detects the predator, and it darts, gone. I mean, these things, you watch TV, it happens, what, 15, 20 seconds. That's it. Maybe a minute and a half max. After they're done with the chase, they go back to grazing on grass immediately. They don't have a prefrontal cortex that makes them think about the traumatic experience again. They're not reliving the trauma. They react to the predation as they need to. And then once the emotion is done, they go back to tranquility.
Okay, my question here is, like, you let's say knew and recognized that you need help at a certain stage in your life. Mm-hmm. Some other people may let's say their experiences may not be that cute or may not be that calling, but what would you recommend them to do?
I still recommend them do work, because what was traumatic for me is different for someone else. Someone who never experienced homelessness or any of that thing, but have experienced debt at a very high level. That can be traumatic for them. That can be something that all trauma is a sense of loss of something valuable. And that's all you need to happen in life in order for you to have a traumatic experience, because all it is you telling yourself a story about an event. We all have stories about events. Otherwise, we don't have experiences. We all have these meanings we've added to things. Nothing is actually what they mean. We just give it that meaning because it makes us feel safe. And I encourage everyone to be willing to go down those pathways, go down into those deep thoughts, those thoughts that keep coming up all the time. Listen to yourself, talk to yourself. Look in the mirror when you're angry, because the person you're angry at isn't out there. It's actually you. But you're projecting the image onto someone else. You don't realize it until you look at yourself, because when you ask the question, what am I really angry at? I don't really know. They did something to me, right? So it's about you, not about them. So unpack all of those little questions. Be curious enough to disagree with your story. Be curious enough to disagree with your story. And watch the disintegration of your negative thought life. Just sort of like, oh, wait a minute, life is much easier to live this way when I'm willing to let go of what things are supposed to mean to me based on my amygdala being hijacked by fear-based responses to my external environment. Everybody has this power. We all are powerful in the fact that we are generators, organizers, and destroyers of our reality. That's God. That's God. So God is not some being somewhere up in the sky somewhere in some confined space. God is, period. And is involved in every human being and is living out experiences in all of us, as all of us. It's namaste again. In, as, and of all of us.
It has been more than awesome talking to you, Nathaniel, as usual. Thank you so much for that indeed.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, stop the recording. It has been amazing. I really appreciate your kindness and cooperation, Nathaniel.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me. I'm glad my voice is out in Cairo, Egypt right now. It's pretty cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, I got the video. It will be online, let's say, by midnight today.
Okay, sounds like a plan, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. Shoot me a link, and I'll be able to promote it on my social medias and stuff like that as well.
Perfect.
Powerful conversation. Thank you.
Great job. Keep going.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. Thank you. Namaste, my friend. Yes, sir.
Bye.